All right, week 14 of the fantasy football season, our final regular season week. I'm ranking all 28 kickers going this week. We're going to get ourselves into the playoffs. Don't you worry. Let's not waste any more time and hop right on into it. All right, four kickers on by this. Well, four teams on by, really kind of five kickers. Over here, Andy Borgialis of the New England Patriots, Younghoe Koo of the New York Football Giants, Ryan Fitzgerald of the Carolina Panthers, our guy Eddie Pinero for the San Francisco 49ers, and Matt Gay for the 49ers, who's been filling in for an injured Pinero. So any of these guys on your team, we're going to make a pickup here to get you that dub. All right, our final stardom every week, guys. We have a couple of additions. Kaimi Fairbairn of the Houston Texans, Cameron Dicker of the Los Angeles Chargers, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to send Chris Boswell back to the Shadow Realm. You just cannot trust this Steelers offense. Good kicker, but really just not trustworthy with Rodgers and co. right now. And of course, Brandon Aubrey of the Dallas Cowboys. If you have any of these three guys, don't worry about the matchup. Roll them out there. They're going to get the job done for you this week. All right, a new one. We're just streamlining this week. Just go ahead and bench these kickers. We're not even going to worry about it. Daniel Carlson of the Las Vegas Raiders, Joey Sly of the Tennessee Titans, Andre Schmidt of the Cleveland Browns, Zane Gonzalez of the Atlanta Falcons, and added to the list, not pictured, current Saints kicker Charlie Smythe. I just, guys filling in. I'm not trusting it. Go ahead and bench these four guys for week 14. Not worth the risk when the playoffs are on the line. All right, first up, Evan McPherson of the Cincinnati Bengals. Our guy Joe Burrow back in action, and things seem all right in Cincinnati. Tough matchup this week, though, heading to Buffalo. Not a great defense. Weather conditions are a concern. McPherson kicks in Cincinnati, so a little less of a concern. He's used to the bad weather. My biggest thing is here, what kind of time of possession are the Bengals even going to have? Buffalo could just run the football all over this defense, chew out the clock. I think it's a little bit worrisome. Buffalo, bad weather, cold, windy, and I just don't know how much the Bengals are going to have the ball and how aggressive are they going to get. I think McPherson's a okay start. I think he's fine to start him if you want to roll with him. Bengals could put up some points. I just worried that they may get ultra aggressive, going for touchdowns, not field goals, in a critical must-win matchup. All right, my guy Will the Thrill Reichard taking on the Washington Commanders, and luckily, J.J. McCarthy's back. Are we really that lucky? This is the worst offense in football right now. It's really hard to watch. Reichard's a fantastic kicker. Honestly, he does get the field goal opportunities at least once or twice a game, probably 2 or 3 times, especially at home. Distant kicks help. I think if you have to start Reichard, you can. Washington is not a very good defense whatsoever. So run the ball, long field goals. There is some upside to Will Reichard, but just too hard to trust with how this Vikings offense has looked the last few weeks. Will Reichard, if you have to, in week 14. And you know what? I'm fading my guy Will Reichard. I'm heading straight on over to Underdog. Will Reichard under 1.5 extra points made. This Vikings offense is atrocious. They make my eyes bleed just watching them. I have zero faith in this team whatsoever. And if you guys are new to Underdog, make sure you sign up using the link down below. Promo code THECATCH. You're going to get a free pick 'em for week 14. Take that pick 'em and take Will Reichard under 1.5 extra points made. And if both hit, you're going to automatically double your cash entry. And on top of that, Underdog is giving all new users who deposit with promo code THECATCH a 50% deposit match up to $1,000. And as soon as you play $5 on Underdog, they're automatically going to give you an additional $50 to use towards week 14. Again, that's new users signing up using promo code THECATCH. Be sure to take advantage of all of Underdog's exclusive week 14 NFL offers. All right, Harrison Mevis of the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Look, tough week for LA last week, but they moved the ball pretty well against the Panthers. But the problem with the Rams is they score touchdowns. They don't kick field goals. Taking on a bad Cardinals team. Going to want to get a bounce back here. Now they are on the road. And you know what? Arizona's done a pretty decent job of moving the football. So they're going to take their points when they can. I think Sean McVay is a little aggressive, but maybe against an Arizona team that is moving the football, he's just going to take his points where he can on the road. I think Mevis is a fine start. This is a good offense. There could be some opportunity here for us. Maybe not the highest ceiling in the world, but I think a solid floor. Worst case scenario is Rams get to have huge game offensively, 5-6 touchdowns. You're okay with that one for our guy Mevis in week 14. All right, Cam Little taking on the Indianapolis Colts. And the big thing here is the Colts don't win in Jacksonville. We're looking at like a decade now where the Colts haven't won in Jacksonville. It's kind of one of the crazier streaks in the NFL. I don't love this don't love this Jags offense. Like, Trevor Lawrence is still flat out bad. And the Colts defense, it's really not great either. So that helps. Sauce Gardner probably out this week with the calf strain. I think there are going to be opportunities for our guy Cam Little. I think he's a fine start, maybe a little limited ceiling, maybe really frustrating to have to watch Trevor Lawrence play quarterback. But overall, Cam Little is a very reliable kicker, and we know he's got the big time leg to get us those extra points. So put Cam Little in the fine to start for week 14. All right, Will Lutz of the Denver Broncos, freshly paid man over here, taking on the Las Vegas Raiders in Las Vegas. Not the best stadium in the world to kick in, even though it's indoors. The grass seems to be weird. Maybe it's because Daniel Carlson's such a terrible kicker. I don't know here, but the Raiders are awful. Broncos score points, but they do struggle sometimes offensively. Think they're going to have a lot of opportunities here. I think we could see some field goals. Sean Payton may be a little less aggressive now. They know they're going to have to get points. They just got to get points, win the game, get the hell out of Vegas. Division games get weird. Can't get too risky with this one, especially with the 1 seed on the line. I'm going to take Will Lutz. I love this matchup this week. I think he has a lot of opportunity, and the Raiders are pretty terrible, and it feels like a great time if you got a kicker every single week against Las Vegas. Give me Will Lutz in week 14. Okay, Chris Boswell of the Pittsburgh Steelers just fell from graces of the start him every week. I think he's okay to start this week. I'd put him towards the tail end. They're taking on Baltimore in Baltimore. Not a good place to kick. And Aaron Rodgers is like dead. It looks like he's so washed. He's got the broken wrist. It looks rough out there. And Mason Rudolph is not any better. Baltimore's defense has been pretty good. They had a weird game against Cincinnati, but they've been good the last few weeks. And this Pittsburgh's offense is just dreadful. Now, there is some upside there. Like, if it's just bad enough where we can get like 3 or 4 field goals, that's really nice. But I just don't think we can take that risk in week 14. If you don't really have any better options out there, you can play Chris Boswell. If you want to go down with a guy like Chris Boswell, I'm for it. It's just not necessarily the best play for us in week 14. All right, Jake Moody of the Washington Commanders taking on the Minnesota Vikings. And this is one I'm just going to really want to avoid. There is some potential there. The Vikings do give up field goals. They force teams to kick field goals, but it is hard to move the football against them. Washington has looked better. I think Moody can be a little bit better of a waiver wire pickup if Jaden Daniels plays. I think if Mariota plays, I would try and avoid it. They're going to get conservative, I think, potentially, maybe not get so risky on some 4th downs with Mariota. They'll punt the ball away to the dreadful Vikings offense. With Jaden Daniels, I think they'll open up the playbook, go for those 4th downs, get those conversions, and they could set up nicely for some field goals here. So if you have to play Jake Moody, I think you could potentially do it. There is some upside there. But again, weird defense, weird matchup with the Vikings. Good defense, horrible offense. What do the opportunities look like? Plus, weird stuff happens kicking in Minnesota sometimes. So Jake Moody, if you have to, in week 14. All right, Harrison Butker of the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Houston Texans. Big Sunday night game. And Butker just has some real big games and some real bad games with there. I think there's some volatility here. He seems to always miss a kick or an extra point, and that sucks. You don't love to see that. Houston defense is phenomenal, but KC does like to move the football and get into field goal range. They are at home in Kansas City. Weather conditions probably not going to be the best out there. It's going to be cold. I think he's fine to start. Again, put him towards the lower end. I think I would have Boswell over Butker going into this weekend. You just don't know with this Texans defense. We could see a struggling, could be like a 10-13-10 game, and KC's on the 10 side. I wouldn't be surprised there. So at your own risk, but we could also see a game where they kick 4 field goals with Butker. They keep getting stopped in the red zone, and they get a couple touchdowns. So give me Harrison Butker as a fine start for week 14, but potentially a bit risky. All right, Matt Prater of the Buffalo Bills taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. They are at home in Buffalo, and Buffalo likes to get aggressive on 4th down and go for it, but this Bengals defense is terrible. You can move the football up and down the field on them. So at your own risk, I think Prater has a pretty safe floor. I don't think he necessarily has the highest ceiling. Probably get your 1 or 2 field goals. You get some extra points, obviously, with the Bills' touchdowns against the Cincinnati defense. But don't expect anything too crazy from Matt Prater, but I think he'll have a solid week for us in week 14. All right, Jay Bates of the Detroit Lions. Pretty up and down season for our guy Bates. Just like the Lions, man. Huge game on Thursday night against the Dallas Cowboys. And this Cowboys defense is really not that bad anymore. Since they got Quinnen Williams, this defense has stepped it up a notch. I think this is a great spot for Bates here. The Lions have to get points. They've been foregoing field goals all season, and it's killed them. I think they need to be a little bit less aggressive here. They got to take their points. You cannot leave points on the board because then you're just chasing the whole time. Dallas's defense is good enough, I think, to put up a nice red zone resistance, make things a little bit difficult for Detroit, and Jared Goff just has not looked good ever since that Minnesota game. I love Jake Bates this week. I think they're going to kick a lot of field goals. I think Dallas is going to give us just the right amount of resistance that we need where it's not just a touchdown fest, and Dan Campbell's not going to be insanely aggressive and going for every single fourth down here inside the field goal range. So I think Jake Bates could have a huge week 14 for us. All right, Riley Patterson of the Miami Dolphins taking on the New York Jets. And you know what? Miami's actually been moving the football. He's done a pretty decent job kicking for us, like 11th in the league and made field goals. So Riley Patterson, a guy we're usually consistently benching, but I think we've seen enough from this Dolphins offense the last few weeks. Now, kicking in MetLife is a bit scary for a young guy. MetLife is a terrible place to kick the football over here. I think he's a startable kicker for us this week. I think he could have a nice week for us. Jets defense is okay. They play okay, good. I don't know. Dolphins a little bit scary in the cold weather, a little risky here, but they've been moving the football well, and they run Devon Achane, and Devon Achane is an excellent runner of the football, and we saw the Jets get beat up, even though when they won, by Bijan Robinson. Bijan ran all over this Jets defense, so I think we could see a nice day from Devon Achane, setting us up for a couple of short field goals. Maybe we get clogged up in the red area. I think Riley Patterson's a guy you can start in Week 14. All right, Jason Myers of the Seattle Seahawks, Mr. Reliable. Huge week last week against Minnesota. The Seahawks really didn't have to do too much trying to score touchdowns. They just settled for field goals. In Atlanta, taking on the Falcons. Falcons defense can sometimes get after the quarterback, and that's something that's slowed down this Seahawks offense. But I think they want to see this offense open up after a struggling week from Sam Darnold. They're going to want to throw the football. They're going to want to get touchdowns. Myers is super reliable out there. I don't necessarily think he's going to have a great, huge monster week for us like he did last week, but Myers always a very stable start, I think. Could have a good week for us. I just think we're going to see a lot more touchdowns in Atlanta than field goal opportunities. But for the field goal opportunities we get, Myers will bang them through. Maybe not the biggest distance in the world, even though he showed it last week. Typical playing my team. Maybe a little bit closer now. Jason Myers, one of the most unsung heroes in the kicking game in fantasy. All right, Chad Ryland of the Arizona Cardinals taking on the LA Rams. This Rams defense really got gashed by, I shouldn't say gashed, they got carved up by Bryce Young in this Panthers offense here. And Jacoby Brissett has looked good at quarterback for this Cardinals team, but I think we could see like a payback week. The Cardinals are maybe due for a dud here. We did see them get smacked around by the 49ers at home. Think the Rams could be getting out some anger here. I would just try to avoid Chad Ryland. Not a full bench. If you have to play him, there is some upside there potentially with this Rams defense giving up some yards, but not necessarily giving up the points to this Cardinals offense where we get some field goal opportunities. Chad Ryland, also not the most reliable kicker in the NFL, makes his kicks usually. I've seen him miss a few this year. So Chad Ryland overall, I would probably stay away from in Week 14, but he's not a full bench for me here. All right, Tyler Loop of the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this offense for Baltimore has just kind of been broken since Lamar's been back. He's been awful as a passer. It's not just the lack of running we've seen. He's not been a good passer of the football. Luckily, taking on the Steelers at home, this defense is atrocious. They can't stop a nosebleed out there. We just saw them get gashed by Buffalo. Their secondary is also terrible in Pittsburgh, so you can throw on them. But things are still weird enough in Baltimore for me where I don't necessarily trust this offense. I think we could have another big week from Tyler Loop. If this was a better defense, I would try and avoid him. But I think this defense is bad enough to pair with this struggling Baltimore offense. I think we have the perfect combination where Loop, like, Raven fans are pissy. Steelers can't stop anybody, but they get them stopped in the red zone. They kick like 3 field goals, and we're having a very happy Week 14. So Tyler Loop, I love this matchup heading into the last game of the regular season. All right, Jake Elliott of the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Chargers on Monday night. Good place to kick. Chargers defense does give up some yards, and you can move the football against them. But I don't know what to do with the Eagles, man. They go for 4th downs. They don't go for it on 4th downs. This offense feels broken. This team feels broken. Jake Elliott, normally a pretty reliable kicker, but I really don't want to have to put my season down to it on a Monday night game on the road in LA with this Eagles offense. Like, I just don't want it to come down to that. So I would try and avoid Jake Elliott in week 14. If you have to play him, you can take that risk. If you want last say, go ahead and if you need a big week, take the risk from your kicker, see how things pan out through the early games or the late games. If you got like Butker or somebody and you just want to take a risk and you need a lot of points, Elliott could potentially give us some nice upside because this Eagles offense is so weird. It scares me. It scares me a lot here in week 14. All right, Brandon McManus of the Green Bay Packers taking on the Chicago Bears in Green Bay on Sunday afternoon. Look, McManus has had his ups and downs. He's been injured for us. He's had some good games. He's had some missed kicks. The Chicago defense really isn't that good. They force a lot of turnovers, but they still can get the ball moved against them. You can score points. Packers offense looked better, I thought, against Detroit. They've been really kind of bad this year, I thought, offensively, Green Bay. I think McManus is a fine start. He kicks in bad weather in Green Bay. I think he's okay. Not the highest upside. Probably a pretty safe floor for us here. I just don't love playing kickers like this because Green Bay's weird on offense. They could score 3 touchdowns. They win this game 21-17, and you have a very disappointing fantasy day. But I think there is potential here where they get some stops, kick some field goals, because the offense is weird in Green Bay. So put Brandon McManus in the fine to start category for week 14. All right, Nick Folk of the New York Jets, the old man kicking a 56-yard game winner against the Atlanta Falcons in the pouring rain, taking on the Miami Dolphins. Look, this Jets offense is much better, honestly, with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but they do move the football, and Nick Folk has been insanely reliable. Did miss a long kick last week, but we know he's not the biggest distance guy. Did hit the one that mattered, though. I think Nick Folk could be a risky kind of waiver wire play. I'd put him in the if you have to category for this week, but if there's a guy out there on waivers that, you're not so sure about, I think he could be solid, man. 2 or 3 field goals. You need some upside there. I think there is potential for this. Miami's defense isn't that great. You can run the football on them still, even though, teams don't even, New Orleans didn't even try to run the football against them last week. I think the Jets will have some success. Always kicking in MetLife, not the best thing in the world. Distance is always a problem here, but I think Nick Folk could have some sneaky upside in week 14. All right, Chase McLaughlin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the New Orleans Saints, and I think we're finding the sweet spot here with Tampa Bay. Their offense is struggling. This team is injured. They're banged up. They're getting a little bit healthier. Maybe Mike Evans is off the IR this week. Bucky Irving's getting back into action, and they're taking on a Saints team that is not horrible, but not good, man. You can move the football against them. They will give up points, but they will get stops every now and then. It is a division game. This game was weird the first time in New Orleans. I like kicking in the sun in Tampa. You know what? A lot of bad weather across the country. I love this matchup for Chase McLaughlin. I think we're finding the sweet spot of the offense is just bad enough and the Saints defense is also just bad enough where we move the football, settle for field goals, get points on the board, walk away with probably another ugly Buccaneers win. I actually love Chase McLaughlin here in week 14. All right, Michael Badgley of the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, a place where Indy never wins. Colts offense is starting to concern me. Daniel Jones is clearly hurt. They're going to have to really rely on Jonathan Taylor, or Danny Dimes is just going to have to drop dimes from the pocket, though. I'm not totally out on this Colts team. I also don't believe in this Jags team. Their defense does have some bright moments, but you can also see games where they get the football moved all over this team up and down the field. I think Badgley is a fine start. He's done a really good job for us. Did miss the extra point last week. It didn't deter them away, Indy. I think it'll be okay. Now, I wish he didn't miss that extra point. I'd feel a little bit better about him. But I think he's a fine start. He's been very reliable for you guys that filling in this season. So I think he's a fine start here in week 14. All right, Cairo Santos of the Chicago Bears taking on the Green Bay Packers. I think I'm just going to go ahead and avoid Cairo Santos this week. I think it's a little too risky here. The Bears actually looked really good running the football against Philadelphia. Maybe the best the Bears have looked all season, honestly, offensively. But this is a very good Green Bay defense. They can get after the quarterback. They are a little susceptible to the run, though, recently. I just don't love Santos outdoors kicking the ball out here. Also, Ben Johnson knows they got to win this game. They are in first place in the NFC right now. Huge divisional game. I think he's going to get ultra aggressive, break out the trick plays, maybe fake field goal over here. That could help us. Fake punt. I don't know. A lot of fourth downs. I think Ben Johnson gets a little crazy like we've seen in Detroit with it these days. I would just go ahead and put Cairo Santos in the if you have to category. Okay, start. I just don't want to play him on the road in Green Bay with a game that we don't necessarily know what it's going to look like here in week 14. But that's going to do it for us this week. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think. I'm here to answer all your kicking questions in our final week of the regular season. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our daily fantasy football content. We got all the stuff you guys could ever need. Your must-starts at quarterback, wide receiver, running back, tight end, your defenses. We're going to get those videos out for you, give you the right tools to bring home those fantasy championships. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on a single thing. Check out the links down below. If you want to see more of me, check out my channel, links down below as well. I'm talking football, not just fantasy over here. So again, like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see y'all tomorrow.